in his biggest toddler yell shouts, "Dada, can you blow me?" Yo, what's good, YouTube? That was from this little subreddit called r/today I fucked up, man. First, we got this guy who fucked up by using a leaf blower on my kids. He says, let's see. I have twin 3-year-old boys and they're very active and silly. Well, the other day I was doing some yard work and using my leaf blower to clear away some grass and dirt. Naturally, they're infatuated, so I used the leaf blower on them and they love it. Started chasing them around the neighborhood with the leaf blower, pretending they were leaves. Good old wholesome father-son fun, right? Well, naturally, now they want me to use the leaf blower on them all the time. No biggie. It's a fun game, and I like playing with my electric leaf blower. Only now it's everywhere, including places where I don't have my leaf blower. So instead, I have to pretend to blow them away like I'm blowing out a candle. Still fine. All day for the last 3 days, it's been, "Dad, can you blow me away?" Very cute stuff. Well, this morning we were at Target and the kids are getting a tad squirrely. They wanted to go to the park and I said we can go after we finish up here. They're dancing around the aisles, being toddlers. Then my son comes up to me in the main aisle and in his biggest toddler yell shouts, "Dada, can you blow me?" Cue 5 people turning around to look at me and my kid. You'd think by now I'd be immune to toddler-based embarrassment, but nah. Hey, I don't think most people would be immune to that type of embarrassment, and that's kind of different. So me, in my quietest voice, face feeling redder than a Macintosh apple, respond, "Buddy," inside voice, "Do you mean you want me to blow you away?" Son number 1, "Yes, blow me, blow me." Excited toddler jumping. Son 2, "Yeah, blow me too, Dada." Me. Boys, inside voices, "Please. You mean blow you away, right? How do you ask for that?" Sons, "Please may you blow us away." I feel like I just gotta issue a giant pause for this whole reading, bro. I just feel like I gotta, I blew them away and they go dancing off like leaves. The others who are watching snicker and giggle. One of the other guys nearby gives me a knowing smirk that clearly said, "Been there." Proceeded to finish the quickest Target run of my life. Hey man, that's I don't know what I would do in that position either, bro. This is funny. I sympathize with OP. When my son was a toddler and only knew a few words, he loved going down the street with all the different flags and the big clock on the outside of this hotel. He would get excited and yell "flags" and "big clock" as we passed them, but he just couldn't actually pronounce the L's. So he was actually saying, I'll let you figure that one out. Why would you ever do that? Today I fucked up by flashing a pharmacy worker with my boyfriend's nudes. I just don't even know. Today I fucked up when I went to print out some photos from a local pharmacy that let you do that a couple months ago. And I didn't know that when you pick a picture to print out, everything else shows up for you to pick. But yeah, I was stuck and called a worker and everything, and they helped me, but they got me to the point where the pictures pop up on the screen, and they just stared at the screen. I'm like, then they walks away, and I look at it. Nudes. I had to interact with this worker to pick them up. That's probably how they said it. I was scared for a while to tell my boyfriend about it because I don't know how he felt about it, but I told him and his jaw dropped. Hey man, I don't know, man. That's just a skill issue. Alright, this one doesn't even say what it's about. When I was 10, I moved into my brother's old room. At one point, I found these paper books, or so I thought, underneath the heater. They were corn. No pics. Stories. I was fascinated and grossed out. I decided to bring them to school the next day and shared them with the class. A mean teacher caught sight of them and demanded who brought them. He told me he was going to get me in trouble. 2 months later, my principal asked if I knew I shouldn't have brought this to school and not to do it again. Yup, she let it go. I never did stuff like that. I was so embarrassed I threw the rest out. Unfortunately, my older bro thought this was hysterical and shared it with the whole family very loudly in a restaurant, laughing. My brother was a real jerk. Hey man, like that comment said, don't be too hard on yourself, bro. 30% of the American population has that experience. Oh, this could be funny. I messed up by forgetting my mic was on during a work call. Today, I seriously embarrassed myself during a work video call. We were about 10 people, including my manager, and everything was going smoothly. At some point, I thought I was muted, so I got up from my desk and started talking to my dog. Not just talking, baby talking. I went full cringy mode with the lines. "Who's the cutest little potato in the world?" "You are, yes you are," in a ridiculously high-pitched voice. After about 30 seconds of this, I noticed the call had gone dead silent. No one was talking. I glanced at the screen and saw my mic icon still lit up. I was not muted. After a few more seconds of awkward silence, my manager unmuted and calmly said, "That was adorable. Just remember to mute next time, okay?" I wanted the ground to swallow me up whole. I've never hit the mute button so fast in my life. I've since been pretending it never happened, but my coworkers have definitely been giving me the look in other meetings. Yeah, that one's just really embarrassing, bro. Again, I don't have a pet, so that's not something I can relate to too strongly, but I could only imagine. Oh my goodness! How is this dude still standing? Today I fucked up by being sleep deprived in Japan, leading to a broken femur, a broken clavicle, and a biblical series of unfortunate events trying to get home. Brother! We might have to turn on ADHD mode. Everything I'm about to write is true. For months, several people have told me I absolutely had to write the story down, so today, I finally decided to do it. Let's get into it, man. Technically, this isn't a today I fucked up. It's more of a last October I fucked up, but I hope you'll forgive me. This might not be the perfect subreddit, but honestly, I had no idea where else to post a story this long and bizarre. I'll try to be as precise as possible with the context. Let's begin. After dreaming of visiting Japan for years, last year I finally bought the tickets, booked my vacation months in advance, and started planning the trip of a lifetime. I arrived in Milan the night before our departure, October 16th. To celebrate, I took 2 of my 3 friends, the third was at a concert, to a Michelin-starred Japanese restaurant. The idea was to see how the best Japanese food back home compared to the real deal. After dinner, we returned to an incredibly noisy B&B and barely slept a wink. The next morning, running on fumes, we got to the airport 4 hours early and calmly boarded flight CA-950 from Milan to Beijing. The flight was uneventful. The layover in Beijing, however, was not. The atmosphere was incredibly tense. A Chinese security officer started screaming at me because he had no idea at me because he thought I had something suspicious in my pocket. It was a candy wrapper. After clearing security, we finally made it to our gate and boarded the next flight, CA-925. After clearing security, we finally made it to our gate and boarded the next flight, CA 925, to Tokyo. That flight was also smooth, and finally, we landed at Narita Airport around 1 p.m. local time on October 18th. We made our way to our hotel in Shibuya to drop off our bags and take a shower. I was completely wiped out from the long journey and the lack of sleep. I suggested we meet up for dinner later to go get a few hours of rest, but my friends protested. No, we're in Japan. Let's go for a walk right now. Fine. Apparently, I'm an old man on the inside. I agreed, and an hour later, I found myself wandering through Shibuya, with nearly 36 hours of sleep debt weighing me down. We met up with a friend who moved to Japan years ago. She acted as our guide, showing us around the area. We had dinner at a local spot where, as she put it, gaijin don't usually go. And everything was absolutely incredible. After dinner, we decided to grab a drink. Our friends took us to a bar and tucked us away on a Shibuya side street, packed with locals drinking and dancing. I had a couple of gin and tonics, which were mostly ice, and I danced enough that I felt pretty sober. But I was still seriously messed up from the exhaustion. At one point, I managed to de-escalate a fight between two huge Russian guys who were about to come to blows, and I even ended up making friends with them. We left the bar, and since it was late, around 1:30 a.m., our friend decided to take a taxi home. Our hotel was relatively close, so we planned to walk. As she was saying goodbye, I glanced up at the building across the street and saw a strange, ghostly figure staring at me from one of the upper floors. To this day, I'm not sure what it is. I assume it was just a creepy mannequin, but it was unsettling. I turned to look at the street and saw a taxi stopped at the intersection on the other side. Our friend had mentioned that finding a taxi in that area at that hour was tough, so we decided to make a dash for it. The street was deserted. The traffic light for cars was already red. We had looked left and right, and in true Beatles fashion, started crossing the street. My friend, who was right behind me, heard a strange noise. Neither I nor my other friend saw anything, but he screamed, "Watch out!" Not knowing what was happening. I tried to sprint forward, as I was only about half a meter from the other side. I never made it. What? Wait, hold on, pause, bro. The world started spinning. In my head, I saw the city lights rotating as if I were inside a washing machine. The next thing I knew, I was lying on the ground. I had no idea what had happened, but I pushed myself up into a sitting position with my left arm. I felt no pain, no discomfort, just confusion. I saw pieces of a motorcycle's bodywork scattered around me. My friend rushed over to check on me. As I tried to make sense of it all, I realized that when I tried to move my left leg, only the top part of my femur moved. The rest of my leg stayed put. Broken leg? Yep. I started to feel a dull ache in the arm I was using to prop myself up. Something was probably broken there too. I switched to my other arm and looked at my left side. I didn't see anything unusual, but I felt a sharp pain around my collarbone. Broken clavicle? Yep. My hand was also bleeding heavily from a deep gash between my middle and ring fingers, likely from where I hit the motorcycle. That's right, I had been hit by a black motorcycle that, according to my friend and other bystanders, was traveling at around 70 kilometers an hour, which is 45 miles per hour for us Freedom Unit users, at night with its headlights off. Or at least no one saw them, and they were off when the bike was on the ground. It's still unclear. I immediately asked how the rider was. At first, no one answered. A minute later, they told me he had been knocked unconscious by the impact, but had calmed to almost immediately, and he was okay. His bike, an 800cc Yamaha, was destroyed. A passerby called an ambulance, which arrived within minutes. The paramedics loaded me in. Thankfully, they understood some English, but my friend was able to translate in Japanese anyways what had happened and explain my condition. A police officer arrived shortly after, got into the ambulance, and asked me what happened. He asked if I had been drinking. I answered honestly. 1 beer, 2 gin, and tonics. The officer stepped away and made a call. My friend overheard him tell the dispatcher, "A drunk gaijin caused an accident. He has insurance, he'll sort it out." My friends had to hold her back from screaming at him. No official report was filed. No statement was taken. When I got back to the hospital, I realized the local police had simply made the problem disappear. The foreigner would deal with his insurance and the local rider would deal with his bike. At Shibuya Hospital, I was admitted to the emergency room. They ran full CT scans to assess the damage and stitched up my hand. The diagnosis: a compound fracture of the femur and a compound fracture of the clavicle. By now, it was the morning of October 19th. I sent 2 of my friends to continue their vacation, while one stayed behind to help me, crashing at our local friend's place. The hospital scheduled my femur surgery for 2 days later on, Monday the 21st, and the clavicle surgery for the following week. The nurses were incredibly sweet and tried to communicate with me using some kind of Asian translation app, not Google Translate. This one had K-pop ads in the middle of the screen and translated everything horribly. One time, a nurse said something and the app cut her off, translating it as, "Kelly is drunk," which sent my friend and me into a fit of laughter. Another hilarious quirk was that Japanese often omit the subject of a sentence, so that the app was always defaulted to I. Phrases like "I have to take your pants off" became "I have to take my pants off," which I admit made me smile. I didn't realize it was that kind of hospital. Yo. Monday arrived, and at 1 p.m., they wheeled me into the operating room. 9 hours of surgery, 4 bags of blood, a 38-centimeter titanium rod, 6 screws, and a metal clamp to put the femur back together. I came out of it at 10 p.m. completely zonked out from the anesthesia, but by the next day, I was feeling generally okay. My foot, however, was paralyzed post-op, and apparently a nerve was being compressed by the swelling. Thankfully, it started to move again a couple of days later, which was a huge relief. The week after, the day before my clavicle surgery, they took me to the shower room to get washed. I could barely sit in a wheelchair, and my foot was screaming in pain. Strangely, my leg didn't hurt much, but the shooting pains in my foot felt like fiery needles. The nurse gestured for me to sit on a tiny stool that was probably the width of one of my thighs. I was barely perched on it. The room was just a hard floor with a bathtub in the middle. The nurse then motioned that she was going to remove the IV from my left arm. No! Wiggly, wiggly, wiggly. Okay. The nurse then mentioned that she was going to remove the IV from my left arm. I pointed out that I had a surgery the next day, but she insisted. She yanked it out, just pulled it straight out without applying pressure or even putting a cotton ball over it. Blood went everywhere. She panicked and just froze, holding the needle, murmuring, "Oh, oh." Yo, lock in, bro, you a nurse. As a red pool formed on the floor, I looked at her, saw she was still holding the spongy elastic netting that kept the IV in place, took it from her hand, and pressed down hard on the wound to stop the bleeding myself. It worked. She looked at me and said, "Oh, okay. I just stared back, saying nothing. To make matters worse, while moving me from the bed to the wheelchair earlier, one of the 2 pieces of my broken clavicle had popped out of place and was now visibly protruding, completely blocking my left arm." Bro, my thing is, like, I could just never imagine breaking a bone, bro. Like, that just sounds like the most horrible experience I've ever thought of. The nurse proceeded to grab the shower head, rinse me, and apply soap to my arms and legs and shampoo to my head. Then she looked at me and said, "Okay?" I motioned for the soap, and with my one good arm, I washed the rest of my body. When the shower was over, the nurse gestured for me to stand up and move to the wheelchair. I looked at the floor. It was stone, soaking wet, and covered in soap. I had one functioning arm and one functioning leg. I weigh 100 kilograms, which is 220 pounds, again for the freedom units. And this Japanese nurse couldn't have weighed more than 40 kilograms, 90 pounds, soaking wet. The stool was so low that I was past a deep squat position. I had zero leverage. Alright, just for a little visualizer, man. I'll give y'all a little visualizer right here, bro. That's like, this man's sitting like this, bro. Hold on. Oh, bro, this man is probably like realistically sitting like this. Oh, you know what I'm saying, bro? Like, if he tries to get up, he's just gonna slip, bro. He can't, like, and you only got one arm and one leg, bro. I think it's like, so he's really like this for real. He can't even, like, what is he supposed to do? What is he supposed to do? He's gotta lock in. Oh, it's all about balance. Oh, it's all about balance, strength. Strength the key. Oh yeah. Skill issue, bro. I just unplugged my headset. I motioned to her that to get me up, she'd need at least 3 more nurses. She grumbled, left, and came back with 4 more. The oldest nurse noticed a heavy mobile metal platform at the end of the room. It had a handle at chest height. She wheeled it over and locked it in place to give me something to pull myself up with. With the help of 4 nurses, I started to stand. I was almost upright when I began to slip. My left leg, the one with the brand new titanium rod, slid out and slammed against the side of the bathtub, as well as all 5 nurses now scrambled to keep me from falling. I looked at the nurse who had wanted me to get up by myself. I said nothing. She said nothing. We understood each other perfectly. The days passed. They operated on my clavicle, a 2-hour procedure, and life settled into a routine. The doctors wanted me to stay for 45 days before flying, but I insisted on going home and pushed myself as hard as I could in every physical therapy session. Finally, the surgeon who operated on me, one of the few people in the hospital who spoke excellent English, announced that I could fly home the following week. I had proven that I could sit comfortably in a wheelchair and handle the return flight. I never set the camera back up, did I? I guess we're staying like this for the rest of the video. Subscribe for this shit, bro. I immediately looked for the first available flight, November 2nd. But then I had a hunch. I checked the weather forecast. A typhoon was coming. Typhoon Kongray was set to pass directly over Tokyo November 2nd. I decided to wait until November 4th. Risking a flight home during a typhoon seemed like a bad idea. Instead, I got to enjoy the storm from my 10th floor hospital window. Finally, November 4th arrived. I was discharged at 2 p.m. Outside the hospital, my friend met me with fresh sushi and a bottle of sake as a parting gift. The sushi was spectacular. At least I got to try some before leaving. A few hours later, we boarded up flight TK-199 from Handia to Istanbul. No clue how to say them, by the way. Scheduled for 9:45 p.m. I was in business class since I needed to keep my legs straight. The plane took off, making a lot of noise, but it seemed normal. About 10 minutes after takeoff, I saw the pilot rush out of the cockpit and run towards the economy section. What do you do if you see this in a plane flight, bro? I feel like the pilot is not meant to just be rushing out of the cockpit like that. So me personally, I think that's shivering my timbers a little bit. Also never been on a flight before, so I started to worry. A few hours passed with no news. I even managed to fall asleep. At some point, I woke up and glanced at the flight map on the screen. The plane was heading back to Tokyo. I asked for an explanation, but the crew said nothing. Half an hour later, the pilot announced that there were technical problems and they didn't feel safe crossing the ocean with the engines in that condition. We would land back at Haneda, and if everything was okay, we'd take off again. Otherwise, the flight would be canceled. We landed. A long time passed. Then the announcement came. The engines were not in good condition. The flight was canceled. We deplaned and went back to the airline ticket counter, where they told us they would refund the tickets and we could book a flight with another airline. The refund, they said, would arrive within 2 weeks. We were talking about 8,500 euro? Bro, that's almost 10, that's a 10 band ticket, man. I dug in my heels and demanded they provide a hotel and a new flight home. This was their problem, not mine. After a 2-hour standoff, they finally found a solution. A new flight, TK51 from Narita to Istanbul, departing November 6th at 10:15 a.m., followed by TK1876 to Venice. They booked us a room at the Hilton Narita and the airport hotel in Istanbul. I finally got some real sleep at the Hilton. We took the new flight and landed in Istanbul, where during the approach, the wind was so strong that the plane had to line up with the runway at a sharp angle. And as a result, the landing was very rough. The impact sent bottles and any other unsecured objects flying forward. Aside from a good scare, luckily, we were all in one piece. Strangely, at the Turkish airport, no one spoke English. I pulled out my phone to use a translator and realized the airport's free Wi-Fi was limited to 30 minutes. I would be angered, bro. Which I had already used on the plane to text my parents. Airport staff wheeled me around without me having any idea where I was going. Then I remembered I had a company eSIM on my phone. I managed to get another 30 minutes of free internet, downloaded the Turkish language pack for Google Translate, and I was finally able to talk to my escort. We were going to the hotel. After some complications at check-in, no one had realized I was in a wheelchair. They gave me a disabled access, fully automated smart room on the first floor. It was very comfortable. The bathroom had a shower with support bars and a chair anchored to the wall. Finally, I could take a real shower. I maneuvered myself onto the shower chair and turned on the hot water, planning to spend an hour just relaxing and washing the hospital smell off me. Half an hour went by. I was soapy, relaxed, and everything was fine. Then the entire room went pitch black. The hotel's smart home system, turned out, had convenient motion sensors. If no motion was detected for 30 minutes, it would turn all the lights off to save energy. But there was no sensor in the bathroom. So I sat there in the dark, naked, soapy, and with one working arm and leg, under the hot water for like 5 long minutes. What were my options? Ring the emergency bell and have a random Turkish employee find me naked in the shower? Slowly lower myself to the floor and crawl to the door? Then, as I scratched my head and my left arm, I remembered I was wearing my smartwatch. I turned it on. The screen cast a faint glow. I used it to pull back the shower curtain. find my phone on the sink, and use its flashlight to get back to my wheelchair. I rolled to the entrance and flipped the main light switch back on. I finished my shower in 5 minutes and collapsed into bed. The next day, we finally took the flight home, TK 1876, and I made it back to Italy. I survived, and now I have one hell of a story to tell. Hey man, that was a crazy story, bro. That's like, this dude's life is literally a movie, bro. That's what I'm saying. How did he stay calm? And I'm guessing these are the scans of his like actual. Yeah, that's crazy, bro. Look at this. Alright, man. I think that's where we're gonna wrap it up for today, man. If y'all enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.